خوش آمدید عزیزان، بیننده های محترم از هر کجای دنیا که به برنامه آرویو توجه میکنید. من سوزی خاتمی هستم. خوشحالم که تهیه کننده و مجری برنامه هستم که مورد توجه شما عزیزان قرار گرفته و الان مدت ها هست که از طرف تلویزیون اندیشه این برنامه میتونه دیده بشه، البته از طریق یوتیوب و چنل های سوشال میدیا هم که مرتب برنامه ها رو میتونید دنبال بکنید. بهتون خوش آمد میگم. برنامه بسیار جالبی رو با یکی از مهمانان عزیزی در برنامه که دعوت ما رو پذیرفتن امروز آغاز خواهیم کرد. از خانم دکتر فوژان زین که هفته گذشته جاشون خیلی خالی بود در کنار ما هم تشکر میکنم که با حضور گرم و صمیمیشون مثل همیشه برنامه رو جالبتر ارائه میدیم برای شما عزیزان.
لطف دارین. با سلام شما عزیزان. خوشحالم که در کنار هم هستیم و یکی از نویسندگان خیلی خوبی که کتابشو هم سوزی جان هم من با هم دیگه خوندیم و لذت بردیم ازش رو دوست داشتیم که با شما عزیزان در میون بگذاریم.
همینطوره. خانم دکتر زین محبت کرده بودن این عزیز نویسنده رو که یک خانم کانادایی هستن، خانم مریفلور که حالا باشون صحبت خواهیم کرد، توناتو رو به من معرفی کردن چون خودشون در برنامه‌های رادیو تاک شویی که دارن دکتر زین با ایشون صحبتی داشتن، محبت کردن، کتابو به دست من رسوندن. بعد از خوندن این کتاب فکر کردم که حیفه که شما عزیزان هم با کارهای ایشون، با کتابی که نوشتن، مسائلی که در موردش ریویو کردن آشنا بشید. خیلی براتون خوب هست حتما. و از دکتر زین اجازه گرفتم که یک مصاحبه باشون در تلویزیون داشته باشیم که مثل همیشه با روی باز استقبال کردن و میریم و مهمانمون رو بیشتر از این منتظر نگه نمیداریم. روی اسکایپ هستن، از تورنتوی کانادا با ما صحبت میکنن، خانم مریفلور توناتو که صحبتمون رو در مورد کتابشون که نامش هست Money, Manifestation and Miracles که مطمئنا برای
Three good M's. M&M.
آغاز میکنیم. Welcome to the show.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you.
Yeah, Meriflor, it was amazing to have you on the radio show with me on ABC, and I gave your book to my friend Susie, and she enjoyed it because before you actually came to my show, we were conversing at one point about money and the anxiety, obviously, that most people that I know have over money. And it's not about whether it's the lack of it or the amount of it. I think it's just a matter of money represents for many people safety, security, and other challenges. And anxiety shows up with it. And I think it was like 2 weeks after that I met you and had you on my show and had read your book, and the dialogue sat really to my heart. And that's why I shared it with her, because that's what we were talking about. And I'm sure that a lot of people in our audience probably have some money anxiety that you can help with.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We would love to hear all your knowledge about it, and of course we would encourage our viewers to go get the book and learn more about it. We can't explain everything, whatever you put in the book with all the world of the knowledge you have about it in 50 minutes, but we'll try our best to kind of start at least a few steps and an overall view about it.
Great.
So let us start. First of all, I'd like to go over what you do as a CEO and founder of Power with Soul. You specialize in helping ambitious women, entrepreneurs, professionals, leaders to reach financial prosperity and success while fulfilling their social promise in the world. So that's who we have with us. And we can start with our questions. I don't know if Fujan Jun, you want to start, but we have a list of questions that we can ask you, and hopefully by the end of the show people are more aware of what to do and then getting your book.
Well, the question first that comes up for me is, although we read about what it is that you do in your organization, but can you tell us what do you do in your organization and how do you support other people, especially women, in creating the power that they have and affluence and prosperity?
Yes, for sure. It's my pleasure. Well, really, so my company is called Power with Soul for the purpose that we can use our power for the highest good. The use that that it's connected to our being spiritual beings and doing a lot of good and sharing a lot of light in the world. And I specifically, my company is a global life and coaching company for women. And I specifically chose women because I really, really want to help empower women on many levels. And I'm on a mission to empower women to claim their wealth and rise as a force for good in the world. So that means that when they can create wealth and affluence, they are going to share that and use money as a tool for the highest good. And so that can show up in many ways that I help women claim their wealth and rise as a force for good. First of all, I can help them with choosing their life purpose and what that is that they want to do with their life's calling. I help them create, grow, and scale their business to one that is really in keeping with their life's purpose. I am also a literary agent, and so I can help women to write, publish, and really expand their platform based on the message of their book. And I also have, of course, the book, which is really all to help women become empowered with their relationship with money, because that is such an important, as you said, Fujan, I mean, we all have emotions and anxieties that trigger us around money. And so I really don't want that to be a barrier for women to be successful in their field and in their industries and sharing their talents and their knowledge and their skills with the world and with their audience. So my company is all about empowerment and raising our humanity and bettering our humanity through works of good and well-meaning people.
Great.
Well, what I want to ask you, Meriflor, is that we know women are emotionally tied up to money or lack of it. Either way, it's affecting us. What steps can you show women to kind of get easier on that? I know that as I was reading your book, that you did say at the beginning that you're not a financial institution, or to tell people as a financial officer, this is how you put your money. You're not a bank. You're not, not in that regards. But generally speaking, how can you help women by feeling better and less, emotionally in that regards connected to it, so that they can lead a better life? What are the steps? What are your suggestions?
Yes, well, Susie, that is true. I deal more with the psychological and emotional aspects that women have towards women, because that can sometimes really hold them back from their greater good. And the reason why I use money as the lens is because it is the fastest way for me to get to the root of what's holding a woman back, whether it's in her career, whether it's in her business, generating income, her relationships. So for women, I talk in the book that money is emotional currency. And what I mean by that is that for women, money is really tied to our sense of self-worth, our sense of feeling like we deserve, our feelings of safety and security, and our self-confidence. And so there are 4 emotions that I isolated in the book, specifically now having worked with hundreds of women that relate to money. And the emotions are fear, guilt, shame, and anger. Mm-hmm. And those 4 emotions, depending on which one it is that specifically speaks to a woman, that what I do is through this book and through working with clients and my programs, what I do is I isolate that emotion and I help them release it through creative visualizations, through having a space that is very, very safe for them to release what they no longer need. Because by the time somebody is reading this book and it comes into their life, they're ready to release something, and they're ready to let go of something. And so, for instance, the most common emotion around money, not just for women, both men and women, is actually fear. Okay. So fear of not having enough, fear of having something and then having it be taken away from you. And so what I do is I actually just had a workshop last week where we did this exact same thing. Is we did a creative visualization, and I had the women really really identify exactly what that fear is. Whose fear is it? Because chances are we've inherited some fear from childhood.
True.
And it was really interesting because a lot of the women were either talking about it was a fear that came from their mother or their father, or some that was a combination, and then they've taken it into adulthood. And so what I do through this book and through my work is when we isolate that emotion, then we can take, it's like an inward journey. We go inward and then we go step by step into actually how to isolate that emotion and then create new beliefs around that emotion to make it, to, if you will, reframe it so that somebody who's using these mindset tactics and new beliefs can start to create a new money story. And when they create a new money story, they can actually start to create a new and more enriched emotion.
I have a quick question here before Dr. Zain asks you the next question or her comments. Sure. And that is, throughout your workshop, what age group in women do you see most that maybe have more issues as far as emotions with currency than others? Is it more of a new generation, or is it 40 and up, or 50 and up for that matter? I'm just curious.
Yeah, that is a really, really good question, Susie. You know, this is interesting because it's actually universal. And I'm going to say that usually it's, you know, I work with women around 38 and up. But what I'm actually seeing is even 15 and 17-year-old young girls really love reading the book. Because which is fascinating to me, and I actually really, really love, because the more empowered these young women can be, the more that they can really get a handle on how they feel about the relationship with money right away. But I'm finding that actually over 50 and up, 40 and up, that there's a lot of programming that would have happened in a woman's life. And when she actually comes to really think about and even, you know, questions her relationship with money, it's so fascinating what she comes up with, and usually through the lens of money, where she's holding herself back. And in some instances, it's just from playing small rather than really going after her dreams.
It seems like also with the developmental stages at 15, 17, and I think there was a study that we had also talked about that it shows that literacy of teenagers and young adults have been very low around money and finances.
Yeah.
And it seems like the 15th and 17-year-old are just beginning to see, okay, I'm going to go to college and I probably have to live alone and I have to get my own apartment and I don't know anything. So at first it comes in the fear of, I don't know.
Yes, not knowing.
Not knowing. And then for the first time, if they're in college and out there, they're working, they're learning how to earn money and what is their money, which is probably minimum wage, really means around the world and what they get, and learn how to manage it. You know, bring up their credit card. I remember the first time I had a credit card, I put up $4,000 in a week, and I had no idea how I was supposed to pay it. I thought, oh, this is cool. It's just one plastic. I could do whatever I want. And then as women are growing up with their having children and then growing, knowing how to manage the whole family system in that way, but also when kids are gone, and then again women are trying to figure out who they are in the business world and their next level of growth.
Exactly.
Money becomes very important, whether they're single or married. Now it just takes a whole different reason and a purpose to deal with money. And then obviously right before retirement, another fear factor
setup,
or anxiety, and a different purpose starts. So it seems like dealing with money is across the age, depending on what the developmental stage is, one of those emotions, whether it's fear or guilt or anger or shame, shows up. And I'm sensing, Meriflor, that one of the things you do, you identify it, and then you create this vision and then shift the emotion to kind of like joy and deserving, and happiness with it, calmness and peacefulness, as it being a tool and a force of prosperity for the person versus a tool that just creates a lot of havoc in their emotions for them.
That's true.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Fujan. That is exactly. I love how you talk about the different developmental stages, actually, because in the last workshop that I had, there was a mixture of women in their either transitioning to a new career, starting businesses, or they're empty nesters, and they found that now that the kids are back at school or living away from home now, that they can pursue a new business. And so this is really what comes up, is the fact that at each of those stages, money is something that is needed. And so it's really, really important to have a good grasp on your relationship with money, because then you can more easily and more joyfully really do what you need to do and accomplish the mission that you want to accomplish.
Yes, I think these are all very useful info as you're putting it out there, Meriflor. And again, I was very interested to know, because of my earlier questions from you regarding women in different age groups and different stages in their lives, only because to me, I think the women nowadays with more education, more awareness, the fact that they're, from early age, they know it's not like the old days, like their grandma's days, that they think at 18 they get married, no matter what ethnicity they're from. Even in US years ago, or back in home in Iran, women used to get married at a certain age and depend on their husband and not necessarily go to work. So obviously how to handle money was kind of unknown to them, and they would be fearful, especially at a certain age when, like you said, emptiness, the kids go away, and it would create all different problems. Nowadays, I was hoping it's not so much an issue for nowadays women that are more, out to workforce. They go education. They, have a good education background. We see a lot of women active as CEOs of companies doing a lot of good stuff. So my hope was that nowadays women have less of an issue with money and resources as such than older generation, let's say 50 and up. Which is why I asked you how many people come to your workshop and what age group they are. But it's funny to see and hear even from Fujanju saying and you mentioning that even young people nowadays, that I thought women nowadays have a lot more power than older days, that they're still concerned about money. And I'm just, fascinated.
What I was also sensing, and then for you to answer, is I think that the one aspect of it, which I also really want, Meriflor, for you to respond, because you also have action plan in your book. One aspect of it is, how do we manage money? So I think that managing money, women have always had to manage money.
Yeah.
Then the conversation was, where was the resources of money? Where did your income come from? Did it come from your family as an inheritance before in the old ages, or did it come from your husband and marrying? So that was the sources of income, and therefore your job description kind of went with whatever the source of income was. And then now, obviously, we have different, we have different sources of income.
True.
Which is workforce, whether we have our businesses, which then is all of our customers, or is it our, one company that we're actually working for. So it's the anxiety of doing the right job for that company. So I just wanted to share my view about the differences of managing versus income. So I think that the income level has shifted the anxiety, because now we have more resources. One of them can be marriage, and another ones can be different companies and all of that. But there's still a skill of how to handle and manage really the existence of money, and do you still have some anxiety and fear and guilt and shame even around that?
Well, you know what? These are all amazing questions and conversation that we're having here. And really, the bottom line here is that money equals self-empowerment for women. And no question that more women are now educated, women are starting businesses, having amazing businesses, and are doing doing well for themselves and have their own money. Now, what's fascinating about this, though, is that there is still an inherent emotion connected to money and women that don't really apply to men as much. And one of the things that what really struck me, and we talked about this before, Fujan, is one of the reasons why I was so inspired to write the book is because I came across a statistic that in the U.S., women-owned businesses are generating $1.6 trillion a year,
Wow.
and which is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But only 3.3% of them are making over 500,000. And so this is a huge gap in terms of their results aren't the same as it is for men. Men are making, getting to the 6 and 7 figures much quicker than women are. And so I really wanted to look at what's behind this, because I've now worked with hundreds of women from across all ages, educational backgrounds, income levels, and ethnicity. And I'm still finding that many women still privately struggle with valuing themselves and their worth. And so it still has a lot to do with self-confidence. And so this is a really interesting conversation because of the fact that when women can get past whatever these emotions are that may be what I call emotional blocks to wealth and money, they're going to be so much more really owning their own power, feeling self-empowered. And when they have access to their own money, they are going to really make that effort to really learn the financial literacy aspect of it. So having to do and doing the work that needs to happen to empower and transform your relationship with money is actually a precursor to really wanting to really learn and be comfortable with financial literacy and management.
So what do you think that the concept of not deserving or not valuing yourself and knowing that you, like any other person, like a female or a male, a woman or a man, you know, works hard, and that they, especially if they have their own businesses. I mean, I can understand the conversation would be different when you are working in a company where women are still getting paid less. So the culture of the company and the corporation would give that message. But there's also, as I hear your understanding and the research that you saw, was that even when women are having businesses, that somehow they capped themselves because their vision does not grow way beyond.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, what were some of the causes that you found in these research areas that women held themselves? Like one area that I keep hearing in my office with women, one of their fear is if they get very, very powerful, the dynamic of home environment with the husband that they have already, or the family system they have, or if they're single and they want to really grasp high, that if they are that powerful, that the amount of dates or the men that they can actually go and have as mates are going to be very limited. So I know that's one concern that a lot of women have. But what are other concerns that you have seen in the research you've done?
Well, for sure, that is a definite. It's the fear of failure is huge, and the fear of success is huge, and this whole self-doubt questioning around self-trust is, who do I think I am to have such a bold business? Who do I think I am to be so successful? And it's really interesting because a lot of these women are also get very nervous that not just the relationships that they have with their partners, but also the relationships they have with other people will change because they won't, they'll outgrow other people as they're moving up in the success chain, and they're also fearing not having the right supports and being in the right environment as well. And fear of success is actually right up there with fear of failure, because that's what I found to be very as a surprise, actually.
Well, I think that's probably because we all get used to our environment and having our comfort zone. So regardless of whether it's a success and is a positive thing, still it's a change. And it's a fear of change, whether it's towards better or worse. So I think maybe that's why. Plus, a lack of self-confidence, which is what I keep hearing from both you ladies, that women who don't have it somehow, that they would have the problem, and whether it will come out as guilt or how am I going to handle it in my home environment, with my relationship, if I'm a successful lady with a great business, and basically handle their lives, even with their friends. Yes. Because it is true, because it does make you a different person and you go up a different step. And that brings me to another questions that you mentioned about having a journal. Writing your stuff about money. How would that help? I read it and I tried to understand it, but I need to hear more from you, Meriflor, if you don't mind. How would that keeping journal help?
Of course, of course. Well, it's really interesting because you've likely heard of a gratitude journal. Mm-hmm. And a gratitude journal is a place where we write down about what we're grateful for, because one of the things is that whatever you focus on expands. So if you focus on gratitude, you're going to have more things to be grateful for. And so the whole concept and idea of this money gratitude journal that I put together is based on that concept of gratitude. So what if you were grateful for the abundance, the prosperity, and the money that comes into your life? And what if you shifted your curiosity to looking for the good in terms of the abundance and the wealth that can come into your life? Why not write about that on a daily basis and then get ready to look for evidence in your external world that that's actually the case? And one of the things that I talk about is if this is something very new to people who are listening and watching us, it's just take a favorite diary or a journal that you have and start looking at what you're grateful for that has anything to do with money or wealth or abundance. And this is something that is like a muscle that you have to build up. And I remember when I first started trying this years and years ago, I would get so excited if I won a free coffee at a coffee shop, or I had a gift card to use, because that also spells some type of abundance. Or if I set a goal to increase my income for that month, or really do something where I was productive in lessening a credit card bill, for instance, or something like that. It's really in the small things that we start to notice, then our behavior starts to change in accordance to what it is that we desire. And then we start to look for a validation and evidence in our external world that this is actually, that we can be abundant, that we can have money come to us with greater ease in our lives. And then that will start to increase your self-confidence. That will start to increase your sense of wonderment and enjoyment of what you have. And then it grows bigger and bigger as a ripple effect until you have situations where you find yourself thinking, oh, I'd really love to do this, because it's an expansive feeling or emotion or goal. And then you'll find that the resources will start to come to you much more quickly than if you hadn't even started to realize what it is that you're grateful for.
I really like what you said, because I know that many people fall into a sense of entitlement, as if, like, if I went somewhere and even there was a sale, that now I'm entitled that everybody should have a sale. Or if I went somewhere, and I know for the Iranian community who loves to bargain, who I try
I think everybody loves to bargain.
Yeah, I was just going to say everybody loves to.
So they try to bargain something, and then they feel entitled later on for that bargaining concept. But what I'm sensing from you is that the gratitude and writing and being in the space of gratitude, that what I'm gaining is a gift that I gained from the world, from the people around the world, that whether I request it or a sale comes along where I didn't request it, but there's an opportunity and a resource where something is being given to me as a gift, or I'm requesting for someone to give me something, and I have the power to request, and I have the power of that relatedness when somebody says, yes, of course, and they give it to me. When looking at it from a grateful and gratitude place, that we open ourselves up to knowing these resources, holding them in a soft place for ourselves. We will look for more resources and experiencing it as something that we are deserving of it.
True.
Versus this concept of going from anger and shame and guilt and then forcing the world to give it to us, or feel victimized about it, not getting it. And the space of the way you are with it, the enjoyment and the emotions about it changes. And therefore, when you're not dealing so much with the negative emotions about it, then your eyes are much more open to what to do, how to be in the world with all those resources.
And really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is too, what raises the elevation is when we have that enjoyment. that feeling that you have when you are just really truly grateful from your heart.
Yeah.
When, let's say you, Susie and Fujan, you go for lunch together, and somebody comes by and says in the maybe it's the store or the restaurant owner, and said, "Oh, thank you so much for coming. Your meal is on us. It's on the house." That is, and when it's you have that kind of surprise, and at the same time that sense of wonderment and enjoyment in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you capture that emotion and that joy in that, it's actually quite beautiful, because that can multiply to other things in your life. And you could have, as if you're on that elevated energy, you can really use that for looking at other things in your life.
That's true. Something else I read in your book, Meriflor, and that was about when you give and how you receive, and believing in that as you give away, whether you give money to charity or whatever, then if you believe in it, by doing good, someone else would do that back to you. Would you talk about that a little bit? Because I hear different people have different views about that. Some really believe in it, and therefore they do goods, whether it's giving money to charitable organizations or etc. And some really even sometimes laugh at you. I mean, I believe in it, and I get people laugh at me sometimes. Really, is that what you believe? So please, if you don't mind, talk about that a little bit.
Sure, Susie, I'd love to. So in the book, the manifestation component of the book, the second M, is about really understanding the different laws, the universal laws that exist, whether we know it or not, they actually exist, and they're always working behind the scenes since the beginning of time. And so one of the ones that you're talking about is the law of giving and receiving. Now, this is such an important thing because the law of giving and receiving is that when you give freely from your heart, and whether it's sharing your talents, giving of your time, or using the spiritual tithing practice of giving and donating 10% of what you make, whether it's through that, what you're actually doing is you are opening the way and opening the space for you to receive something in return. Now, you may not end up receiving something from the person that you gave it to. You may not receive something that day. But what happens is you've activated this beautiful law of abundance and flow. And at some point in your life, it will come back to you. And it will come back to you at the time and when you need it, and what it's ever for your highest good. And so what I like to say is that in giving, it actually opens up to receive, because there's this kind of like space, like, and nature abhors a vacuum is a terminology that I use, and something is going to fill that. So let it be something good filled in your life.
I also, to say it another way that I've experienced, is also when a lot of people feel guilty about receiving, or feel that they're less than because they received money or gifts or any of that. When we are a giver and we really enjoy the concept of giving, and see that how beautiful it is when you share a part of you, whether it's your word or whether it's your heart or whether it's a tool such as money, then when the other side shows up, when you want to receive, you remember also how joyful it was to give. So I'm hoping and sensing that that part of guilt does not show up, and that part of less than and inferiority and superiority doesn't show up anymore. And it becomes a shared value of an equal giving and receiving, and then seeing what's being given as truly a gift. And that way to enjoy that type of a receiving, really.
Exactly. And you know, the other thing that you've just touched on here, Fujan, is the fact that even paying somebody a compliment and then somebody accepting it and saying thank you, you know, that's a way to receive. Sometimes I find that sometimes when you'll say something to somebody like, thank you so much for that, somebody will say to you, oh, no problem. Instead of saying you're welcome, you know, to actually receive back that abundance. And that's it's like a nuance, and it's just a very slight thing, but in that exchange can be a lot of what you are willing to receive and accept within you as well.
What a great point you mentioned. I often thought of that, and I thought maybe I'm looking into things way too much than I should.
You do, but no. I'm just kidding.
No, but that's true. Because I often wondered, like sometimes when I tell people like thank you, and I hear them say no problem, I'm thinking, really? Like, was it supposed to be
like
problematic? Or like okay, never mind, you know, like who cares? But it's so important, seriously, how you say and how you reply to people. You know,
exactly.
So I'm so amazed that, you know, it wasn't just me thinking that, because sometimes I just feel like, am I really reading too much in between lines? Is it something wrong with me?
It feels like a rejection. Like when somebody says, you know, even with the gesture or their voice, they negate it. It feels like a rejection. While anybody that, you know, gives, they want to, at least for the person to receive it. I remember I had this exercise, and I want to share it with you, Susie,
sure.
and Meriflor, and everyone. I remember I was in a class, and there was conversation about giving without necessarily the other person coming back and saying thank you to you. So I figured, okay, I was going to the gym, and I figured, okay, I'm going to put these dollars inside. How am I going to, you know, for them not to know that it was me? So I'm going to do, I got all these dollar bills, and I went in and I figured the only way that I can do it is to put it inside these towels that are going to be washed. So I put in all those, put it in the middle, so when they open it up and they see this money, they'll be excited and not knowing who gave it to them. Well, guess what?
They put that whole thing into the water.
Thank you. And it all went away. So,
oh my goodness.
And then it was more like, well, I don't care if somebody tells me thank you, but I hope that they receive it and they actually get to enjoy it. Like it makes a difference in somebody's life. And that concept of knowing that somebody gives you the feedback that made a difference in their life. It's not about whether they thank you again or not, but the receiving and knowing that that made a difference, whether it made a difference in an emotional or any other way. True. I think that's important.
Which is what they say, don't ever expect a not a thank you, but don't do things for people because you have any expectation at the end, because it defeats the whole purpose of being nice. In other words, I hear always people say that if you're being nice because you want to be nice, you want to be giving, you want to be loving. It's not that because you expect something. You know, like I give you $1, therefore you say thank you, and you give me $1 back tomorrow. That they say it shouldn't be the case, right?
Yes, exactly, because this only gets activated in the best possible way when it's really from the heart.
True.
Because if it's exaggerated to elicit a specific response because you want to get something, then the person who's even giving it, the energy is different. You know, we can't see it, but we can actually feel it. And that doesn't become this beautiful exchange of giver and receiver. It just feels a little bit too much like it's staged, and somebody it might not turn out the way that person wanted it to be because they were really seeking something else. Maybe they were seeking to be seen in a better way, or they had some kind of other motivation that wasn't pure in heart.
But I also I agree with what both of you saying. I think I have another point which I was sharing with you. I just want to make sure that I'm coming through with the point. I think that when people are giving, when somebody does not need it or want it, then also that giving it creates an effort that is being given, and you're just putting something out, and the other person might even either not understand or not have it to be benefited for them, or that they take it, but they take it as a burden because they really didn't ask. Like even whether it's a comment, whether it's an approach, whether it's somebody's not hungry, and again, with our Persian families, we all have taarruf. So if somebody says, you go to somebody's house and they're like, would you like some tea? And like, no. And they're like, no, you have to have it. And if you say no, I would be very upset if you don't have it. So I'm saying that there's also this other piece of giving, which although it needs to be freely and from your heart, I also think that if you can see the person in front of you, if you're giving, you got to be giving to them, not just because you're forcing your giving approach, down somebody's throat.
No, that's a really good point too, Fujan, because that's a great example actually. And so there's always a balance. You have to really be if you are the giver and the receiver, you have to really be in connection with what that is that's being exchanged there. And on another note too, sometimes if people sometimes give and you might have something else already. You might have the same thing. What I always say to people is, if you would like to pay it forward to somebody else who may need it, I'd be happy with that as well. Because that means that there's always a flow of abundance that's being moved forward.
Well, it's been really a pleasure talking with you. And before the show ends, I thought maybe if you can help our women, our viewers, first of all, really reading the book. I have a feeling it could be just as beneficial to men as it is to women.
Yes.
So even we're women here, we want to always make sure we're empowering each other. But I'm almost sure that men can definitely benefit from it. So on that note, if you give us some tips, mostly for women, but also men can benefit from, if they're going through some challenges with money issues right now. Just towards the end, as a conclusion type of a thing, if you don't mind.
Yes, my pleasure. Well, first of all, you're absolutely right, Susie. Although it's written for women, men will find value in reading it. And I have had many men come to me and say, I love your book, and I'm going to tell all my male friends. But one of the things, too, that I'd really love to conclude on is if whatever you may be going through right now around money, that you may be having some anxiety or some worry, what I want to leave you with two things. And the two things is, one is a mindset and one is an action. From a mindset perspective, I would really love for you to know and hear that whatever your past or current money challenges are, they don't define who you are or control your future. Because you are in charge of that. You have the power to make a choice at this very moment by hearing us, seeing us, to say, I'm going to choose to change the story that I have had with money. So that's once from a mindset standpoint. Now, from an action standpoint, is to really go within and to be very, very honest with yourself and really pinpoint that that pattern or the emotion that causes that pattern that you have with money. And then I'd love for you to use this book and then nourishingly apply it step by step, because it's going to help you to really put money into context and to feel so much more empowered with using money as a tool for your life, to have a quality of life that has meaning and that is fulfilling for you. And so use this book to apply that, because it's not only going to show you how to transform your life financially, but it's also going to show you how to transform your life from a sense of from emotionally and spiritually and psychologically as well.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Well said, Meriflor. We really appreciate your time, and hopefully when you get to Los Angeles for maybe some workshop, you let us know. We would love to come and meet you in person, and a lot of other, I'm sure, Iranian viewers would love to be participating in your workshop here in LA. So keep us posted.
So amazing. I would love that. It's a date, ladies. It's a date.
That's
Beautiful.
true. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
And all the very best. We appreciate it.
You too.
خب
اوکی،
کلی لذت بردیم از مریفلور تورنتو که خیلی صحبت خیلی جالبی راجع به طریق بودن در حقیقت
واقعا به من کمک کردین کتاب. Thanks to you.
چجوری به وجود بیاره انجام میده. به نظر من خیلی مسائل مهمی رو داشت. حتی این آخرش که میگفتش که فرقی نمیکنه حالا کسی دریافت میکنه نمیکنه، میخواد حتما بهش رسیدگی بشه، شما ببینین یا نبینین. همینی که این فضای giving ایثارگری رو خودتون دارین تجربه میکنین و در فضا میذارین، خود این ایثارگری هم به خودتون لذت میده، همینی که حالا اگه قراره برگردید
به محیط اطرافتون. Good energy always. Well said. خیلی ممنونم از شما که باعث آشنایی من شدید با مریفلور، با اینکه این کتاب رو به من معرفی کردید. It has certainly helped me. امیدواریم که بیننده های ما هم از این مصاحبه لذت برده باشن، با کتاب آشنا بشن. Money Manifestation Miracles. Meriflor Toneatto. نویسنده کتاب بودن که باشون مصاحبه داشتیم. تا هفته آینده و برنامه دیگر همه شما عزیزان رو به خدای بزرگ میسپاریم. یک دنیا از شما سپاسگزارم مثل همیشه. هفته خوبی داشته باشید.